Hi everybody, it's Debra Burgin with heartfeltinspiration.com, and I wanted to talk to you about Butterfly Brilliance. And in my last video I talked about this collection and all the goodies, and I've been playing with it a lot, as you will or have seen on the blog. And so I wanted to talk about something that I'm seeing, which is people cutting apart the stamp set so that you can use the butterflies individually. And honestly, I can see arguments for both ways, but I'm going to tell you why I'm keeping it together. So let me just tidy up here. So I'm going to show you how I made this card, which you saw on the blog yesterday. It's a note card with a matching little envelope, and I love to make note cards because they're so little and they're easy to put together. You'll see that I'm using the same technique on a full-size card. I'll show you that later. But I want to show you how I used the Stamparatus to do this. So here we have the Stamparatus with Butterfly Brilliance kept together. So I know that there's a glare on here, and I apologize for that, but that's just the way it is. Okay, and hopefully I don't hit things as I'm opening this. Okay, so first of all, I want you to notice that I've stamped on my grid paper here. I'm going to be using this obviously as a background. I mean, you just saw this. This is a background here. Not that you can't stamp a background with multiple stamps, because we do that all the time, but I've stamped it on the grid paper here so that I can see where my placement is for my paper. So I'm going to forget these marks here, because you can see where I need to put the paper down, because I can tell where it's going to be stamping. Duh. I also mark where to put the magnets, where they're not going to interfere with the rubber. Okay, so I'm going to put it out there. And truthfully, it doesn't matter if it's straight or not, because we're cutting this down. So just the littlest corner of the magnet there. And I'll double check to make sure that it doesn't interfere, and you can see it's okay here, and it's actually okay at the top too. Secondly, I'm going to use a brayer to ink this up. So we used to sell this hard rubber speedball brayer. It was obviously not manufactured by Stampin' Up, and you can get these at big box craft stores. Truthfully, they're very useful to have, especially when you're working with background stamps, because they very evenly apply the glue. Not the glue. Do not use glue on here. Apply the ink. Okay, so let me show you how you use a brayer. It's like loading up a paint roller if you're painting your room. So I've showed you this before. You don't go back and forth like this, because then you're only inking up a small area of the brayer. You're going to ink it up and lift up. So back and forth like that. Okay, that's the last time you're going to see that. I put something under here so I have a little support. And I'm just going to roll this back and forth. Okay, and actually I'm going to load my brayer again, just to make sure. Okay, and now let's see how this looks. I'm so worried I'm going to hit my... Okay. So, I mean, one of the reasons that we use Stamparatus is to make sure that you get a good impression with your stamps. Same here. And look how beautiful that is. That is beautiful. So this is early espresso ink. It looks kind of black, but it's early espresso. This is another one of those monochromatic cards that is just so easy to make. So if it were not exactly perfect around the edge, it doesn't make any difference, because I am going to cut this out with a stitched rectangle. So the reason I use such a big piece of paper, this is 4 by 5 1/4, is because I have many of these cut at all times because I use them for the insides of cards. So you wouldn't have to start with something that big. But here I can play with this, the placement of this where I want the butterflies. It doesn't have to be parallel to the edges of the paper because the butterflies are not all going the same direction. So you're going to cut this down. And the panel is embossed, which I always love this look because it just makes it a little bit different from the background of your card, different from your card base. So, so it's stamped, die cut, and embossed, and then put on a very narrow early espresso mat. Okay, so the other thing is, if you're going to do an envelope, you can still use my technique here. I mean, this isn't really rocket science. So if you're doing an envelope, you know that you need to do it so that the envelope flap is, the images are going to be reading up. So you might think you can do it like this, and then they would be upside down. So I have masked off the body of the envelope, and then knowing where my images are here, I'm sorry I'm stumbling because somebody just texted me about something. Knowing where my images are going to be, I can put this anywhere and ink up. And here, because of the fold at the edge of the envelope, you always mask it a little bit towards, a little bit that way off the fold, because see how you get that gap? What I call the curb. You'll always have a little bit of an issue with that. So this is exactly why I'm using the Stamparatus, so that I get a better image. That's better. Okay. So now I have a really pretty envelope, and I save these Post-it notes for the next time. See how nice that is? Although somebody just smeared this, but that's okay. As some of you know, I always blame that on the post office. So isn't that pretty? I don't always stamp my envelopes because sometimes I just plain forget. But to me, it's just the icing on the cake, literally almost, when you have a card to do a coordinated envelope. Okay, so now, what about the reason for cutting apart your stamps is because you only want to stamp one butterfly. Well, here's how I'm going to approach that. Now, having said this, I could be persuaded to actually get another stamp, the Butterfly Brilliance, and have one of them as a background stamp and one I would cut apart. I've cut apart stamps before. I've cut apart stamps that have sentiments as part of them. But here in the meantime is what I'm going to do. Suppose I want this, just this butterfly right here. I've got a piece of basic white. It's a scrap. And I'm just going to put it over this. And I could even put my magnets on here. Let's see if this is going to work as well as I think it will. So it's this one right here. And, you know, the mistake I just made is my magnet is in the way. Okay, go away. Oh, that's the wrong one. Okay, and so then look, I've got just that butterfly. Man, I've got ink all over here. And so easy to cut out. So again, knowing where it's going to be stamped means I just put my scrap right over that. You can see why I've got ink all over. It's because it's not drying real fast. That is a gorgeous butterfly. So anyway, some tips to make this something you want to consider, leaving this stamp set all together or cutting it apart, of course, your choice. So I hope that helps, and come back tomorrow or keep watching. I've got several more samples using Butterfly Brilliance and the whole collection of products for you on the blog coming up. Thanks very much.